Howdy, Immortalium here, and I'm going to do something a little different today. I know I usually cover anime and manga, but just to tell you, that isn't the full extent of my interests. I'm also interested in film, as you can tell from the 24-hour movie marathon videos and other stuff as well. So today I thought I'd tell you about a great book I read. So Immortalium's first book review is Clive Barker's Books of Blood. Now, just to tell you a bit about the author. The author, Clive Barker, is, how can one describe him? He's done so much. I mean, he's a film producer, film director, author, illustrator, graphic artist, tons of stuff. He's really done so much. It's hard to compress him down to one level, but I guess his most famous stuff would be his books and his movies. Arguably his movies, since he created an important horror icon, Pinhead, in the Hellraiser franchise, which I think he directed the first one only, but then he produced the next two and wrote the script, and then after that I think it didn't have much involvement from him. But this is an anthology of older stories from him from the 80s. I think it was the 80s. And it is a really good read. I mean, it's an anthology, as I said, so there's individual stories and each one are different levels of quality, which is why I've actually written them down here, my opinions on them. So I might just glance over there each time I talk about it. First of all, before I go into the stories, his style. One thing you can definitely say about Clive Barker whenever you read one of his books is that he's fiercely imaginative. I mean, fiercely imaginative. Not only that, but he has a little uncomfortable to talk about. The way he handles horror is also very sexual. Actually, there's a fantastic line from Forward, which is so good, actually I've read it twice. He said that, just give me one moment, oh yes, as though he might have stepped out of one of the stories in this collection, in talking about a demon that he saw, an amalgam of sexual incest, excess and demonic elegance is likely to F you as tear out your heart. And that's a good way to describe Clive Barker's works. They are fiercely horrible, very imaginative and quite disturbingly sexual. But they're really good, they're very graphic, they're visual, they're told in a fantastic style of story. Style of writing, I'm sorry. Okay, let's get on to the individual stories. So, in this collection, there's 6 books in total, but this is the first omnibus. That would be the first 3 books of blood. There are 16 stories. Now, the first one is a Book of Blood, and basically it acts as a frame story for the whole thing. You know, okay, when I describe these stories, I'll try to avoid spoilers. So if I can't tell you much about them, you know, don't get angry at me. Book of Blood acts as a frame story. Basically, it frames all the other stories, you know? It kind of... It acts as a kind of a ghost story, in a sense. A haunted house story. And, to be honest, I thought it was only okay. I gave it 3 stars. I mean, out of 5, obviously. Like, it was very well told, but I thought it was a little cliche. So, not the most promising way to open it up. But then again, it acts as the frame story, which generally they're not the best. Next one, though. I love the title of this one. Midnight Meat Train. I would think about that, Midnight Meat Train. It sounds so horrific. They made a movie, apparently, I think with Bradley Cooper. I haven't yet to see the movie, but I really want to. I gave this one 5 stars, and in fairness, it is an amazing story. I mean, it grabs your attention at the beginning. There's characters in it that in a sense, I guess it's kind of like a conspiracy thing, but it's also a slasher story, demonic thing, and there's this character, lead character, who's just kind of bored of life, but he has that sense that he wants to live when he's given that situation, and yet it ends on such a... It's hard to tell if you're happy or not, but it's really good story. Like, I mean, it's just that story. Okay, I wasn't too keen on the Book of Blood, but once I got past that and read the next story, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be awesome. Next one is The Yattering and Jack, and it's a little, it's still fairly, okay, how can I describe it? It's horrible, but it's also quite funny, ironically. It's like a horror comedy, and while it's very good, and it's a nice change of pace from Midnight Meat Train, which was so intense, because of the fact that it's a little comedic, it's kind of loses a bit of focus there, but it's still very good, and 4 stars there. Pig Blood Blues. How can I describe this without the star? Okay, first of all, as you can tell, it's Pig Blood Blues refers to both a pig in the story and the fact that there's a cop or an ex-cop in the story, and it's very good as well, but it's not quite as good as the Midnight Meat Train or the Yattering and Jack, so I gave that 3.5 stars. Next one is Sex, Death and Sunshine, which is kind of... It's about the theatre, but it's also kind of like zombies. Very graphic in the sex, but very good as well, 4 stars. The next one, In the Hills, the Cities, set in Yugoslavia. This gay couple, 2 men, are over there, and they come across some weird kind of carrying-ons. And I remember at the beginning of it, I was kind of thinking to myself, it's a bit weird, and I was having a little bit of trouble understanding it. Plus, there was some very graphic homosexual sex, which, considering that it was a little uncomfortable for me to read heterosexual sex in the previous story, it was a little bit more uncomfortable for the homosexual sex in the next one. But it's a fantastic story, actually, once you get into it. It's 4.5 for me. Dread. Oh, Dread was so good. I mean, that... 5 stars. First of all, this is 5 stars, and it deals with fear, and a kind of a fear experimentation. And it is so good. I mean, it was so intense, and it sent such chills down my spine reading it. I mean, I was just absorbed like no tomorrow. I mean, it is a really good story. Hope it's okay so far that I'm only summarizing it like this. Like, the best way to read this, just to tell you, is to read it with as few spoilers as possible. So, okay, I'm just going to keep going. I just wanted to tell you there in case you think, oh, he's only just... Hell's Events, racing, and we get to see Satan again. Satan actually appeared in The Yattering and the Jack, and he appears again in Hell's Events. But it was a 3.5. It was good, but it wasn't too good, you know? It was a good story, though. Jacqueline S. Oh, I love that story. Again, it's quite sexual, but it's kind of... There's a sense of female empowerment in it. There's a sense of revenge, that she is angry at society and she wants to get back at it. And it's a really good story. And plus there's psychic powers. So really good, 5 stars. Then the next one's The Skins of the Fathers. It's kind of... It's like... There's demons, and they hang out together and they impregnate women. And all these farmer guys are really angry. But really good story again, 5 stars. New Murders in the Rue Morgue. Best way to describe this would be bestiality. A 3.5 for me. Son of the Celluloid. Despite the fact that I'm a big fan of film, and I thought, and there were some very nice film cameos in it, I actually thought it was the weakest story out of all of the stories in the book. I gave it a 2.5. I kind of found it a bit predictable, a bit, you know, cliche. It's my least favorite story out of the lot so far. Out of all the stories here. Rawhead Rex. Wow. I mean, when it comes to demons, I mean, Rawhead Rex is such a character. I mean, he is so good. And really great cast in it as well of characters. Fantastic graphic style. It's a 5 stars. It's really good. Confessions of a Pornographer, Shroud. I mean, now when I read the title, that was quite an attention grabber. I was like, what? What the hell does that even mean? But actually, I must admit, I have a real kind of love of revenge movies, you know, like Kill Bill and all that jazz. And Confessions of a Pornographer, Shroud is actually, despite the sound of the story, it's actually a revenge thing, and it's really good. A bit weird at points, which is why I gave it a 4.5 rather than a 5. But like iffy when I say weird, because there's good weird and bad weird, but it is a good story. Scape-Goats is kind of an island, you know, they're stuck on an island and they come across weird stuff. And it is a very good story again. Little bit cliche, as I say before. I know it's kind of, it's trying to play up the cliche, oh, they're stuck on an island, you know, and it works around with it, and that's why I gave it a 4. I liked it, but it could have been better, I thought. And then Human Remains, that's a 4 stars again. Kind of plays around with doppelgangers, you know. If any of you have ever seen Darkman, starring Liam Neeson, kind of like that, except more of a, like more horror than a superhero thing, so kind of like that. And I averaged them out, and that comes down to me giving it a 4.125. So I'll just say, although in reality I'd probably give it a 4.5. I mean, it is a really good book. One thing that might be an issue for some people, though, just to tell you, is that okay, it's published by a company called Sphere, and it's got a great introduction, as I said before, and the paper quality is very nice. But I do want to just point out the text is quite small, so you definitely want your reading glasses for that, or to be in a brightly lit area. And it's not that heavy actually, considering it's about 500 pages. It's quite light, and the paper quality is good, so that's good. So overall, I would highly recommend this. I mean, Stephen King has a great way to summarize Clive Barker in this. What Barker does make the rest of us look like we've been asleep for the last 10 years. I mean, it is a really good book, so I highly recommend it. It's not expensive. I mean, it took me, how many hours to read? Probably 12. I'm not the fastest reader when it comes to normal books, which is why I generally go for manga a bit more, because I can read manga much faster. But this is a really good book, and I highly recommend it. So yeah, that's my review on Clive Barker's Books of Blood. This is Immortalium signing off on his first book review. Bye.